Welcome to this new C# lesson. In today's lesson, we will learn about the variables naming rules in C#. I have Visual Studio Community 2015 open. I'm gonna start a new project. Choose Windows Forms application, and I'm gonna come here and name my project. I'm gonna say variable naming rules lesson 2, for example, and I'm gonna click OK to create the project. I'm gonna change the text property here and say variable naming rules, and I'm gonna double click the form to create a load event. So when I double click the form, I'm gonna create a load event, and when we double click the button, we create what we call a click event. So I'm gonna now create a load event. I'm gonna double click, and here I have this event here called load. We will learn about events in the future lessons, but for now let's talk about variable naming rules in C#. C# is a very flexible language when it comes to naming variables. Basically, the programmer can use alphanumeric characters, a mixture of upper and lowercase letters, and underscore symbol. The only limitation we have is that variables cannot start with a number, and the name must not be a reserved word. And to demonstrate this, all these examples are acceptable in C#. Okay, so we have, for instance, we can say int my number. This is acceptable in C#. We can say int my underscore number. This is also acceptable. I can say int my number 1. This is also acceptable. And of course I can say int my number, and that's also acceptable. So what is not acceptable is the following. So we're gonna say not acceptable. So if we declare a variable like this, that is not acceptable. If we start with a number, for instance, we say int 34 number, and do this, that's not acceptable as well. If we do this, for instance, we say int my name, for example, and we put a $sign, that's not acceptable as well, because all these special characters cannot be used in declaring variables. Also, we cannot put space when declaring variables. For example, if I say string Boca Raton, that's a city in South Florida, and you do this, that's not acceptable as well. So all of these here are not acceptable variable names in C#. Other than that, you can declare variables the way you want. The last one I forgot to mention is the reserved word. For example, if I say string switch, that's a reserved word in C#. We can do that, or string for each. That's also not acceptable. All these reserved words, we cannot use them to declare variables, but other than that, we can declare variables the way we want. It is good practice to give your variables meaningful name. So for example, you name your variables something like int customer number, for example. This is a good name, so the person who comes after you and reads the code can easily understand what you're trying to do here. Another good name is, for example, customer name. This is a good variable naming practice. The bad practice is when you do something like this. Bad. For example, you say int cm, for example, for customer number, or a string customer name, let's say cnm, for example. This is a very bad way to name your variables. So you should always think about the person who comes after you and read your program. He should not find any problems reading your code. Now let's talk about casing. Casing in C#. The general rule is that you should use camel casing for variables and method parameters, and Pascal casing for class names and method names. Okay. An example of camel case is string new customer, for example. So camel case starts with lowercase, then after that the first letter of the next word is always uppercase. So if I want to say new customer list, see, I start with an uppercase, but here the first letter should always be lowercase. That is called camel case. So we use it to declare variables. We also use it to declare parameters. Okay, I'm gonna just give you a quick example. I'm gonna come here and say public void draw, for example, and I'm gonna pass a parameter. I'm gonna say string width. Okay, this here is called parameter, or sometimes it's referred to as argument. We will talk about parameters and arguments in the future lessons, but as you can see here, I'm using camel casing. I start with lowercase. Now if I want to make this name bigger, so for example I say with picture, for example, see, the first letter of the next word is always uppercase. So we use camel case in C# to declare variables and also to declare parameters in methods. Now the Pascal case, we use it to declare classes. I'll give you an example of a class. I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna say public class new car. Okay, and I'm gonna do this. So this is Pascal case. The first letter is always capital letter. This is called Pascal case. We use it to declare classes, and we also use it to declare methods, as you saw here. I say draw. Okay, this is Pascal. If I want to make this name bigger, for example, more meaningful, draw picture, for example. You see, always start with uppercase. That's called Pascal in the programming terminology. So basically this is it for this lesson. I would like to thank you for watching, and you have a good day.